Welcome class to Week 2, Lesson 1, Places, Regions, and People found within Chapter 1. Let's take a look. Using our tech book this week, we're going to be taking a look at 1.2 lesson, Places, Regions, and People, and how do geographers use maps to answer questions and solve problems. The focus on this is mapping our world and understanding how maps are different and what they do. Imagine that you and your family are driving across the country. The car you are driving is older and has trouble climbing mountain roads, so your parents want to avoid driving through mountainous areas as much as possible. How would you know which routes to take? One good idea would be a map. Maps are designed to highlight information about a specific location. Some maps show the location of political borders. Other maps show the location of rivers, lakes, and oceans. Still, other maps show the locations of certain populations. We're going to take a look at the 4 maps shown on this page. This map is showing parts of North America in 1698, which would be a historical map focused on a specific region that is no longer at this point physically accurate. The map below is the eastern United States in 1783 is focusing on a specific area and who owns what area. Below is a postal delivery. And this one is showing the map of Hurricane Bob. So now that we've seen some examples of maps, let's take a look at the actual mapping landforms and waterways and how do maps depict physical features on the Earth's surface. You're going to want to take note at the top of the page. The Venn diagram is going to be found on Schoology, and you might want to take the time now to pull that up so you can follow along and fill it in as we go. If not, you can finish the activity at the end of the lesson. A map is a diagram that visually represents a place on Earth. There are many different kinds of maps, and they are all used to show different kinds of information. A physical map shows the physical features of an area. It also provides readers with information about topography or the height, depth, and shape of these features. Physical maps identify mountains, deserts, body of water, and other landforms. These maps also provide information about an area's elevation or distance above the sea level. Mountains and hills, for example, are higher in elevation than valleys or plains. Physical maps are also sometimes called landform maps or relief maps. In geography, the word relief refers to changes in elevation. At this point, you've had a lot of vocabulary in a very short period of time. So I would take the time now to pause and make sure you have the following vocabulary words within your vocabulary sheet: map, place, physical map, desert, landforms, elevation, and plains.
Landform maps.
From up here, you can see the landscape of the ground below. Mountains and valleys, rivers and lakes. A landform map looks a lot like the view from an airplane. You can see landforms all over the world. There's Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania on the continent of Africa. Kilimanjaro is the highest mountain in Africa. Northwest of Tanzania, you can see the longest river in the world, the Nile. The Nile flows from Lake Victoria in Central Africa north to the Mediterranean Sea. Then, there are the Himalayan mountains on the continent of Asia. The Himalayas are the Earth's highest mountain region, home to 9 of the 10 tallest peaks in the world. This includes Mount Everest, the highest mountain on Earth. The Amazon River in the northern part of South America runs mostly through Brazil. It carries with it more water than any other river. Another important river, the Rio Grande, forms the border between 2 countries, the United States and Mexico. The Rio Grande starts in Colorado makes its way for 1,300 miles as the border between Texas and Mexico, and empties into the Gulf of Mexico at Brownsville, Texas. In Mexico, this river is called the Rio Bravo. Another large landform in North America is the Rocky Mountain chain. The Rockies run from British Columbia in Canada to New Mexico in the United States. To the east of the Rockies, in the middle of the United States, is a very important body of water, the Mississippi River. The Mississippi starts as a small stream in Minnesota, but becomes a large river as it flows south towards the Gulf of Mexico. Americans rely on the Mississippi for transportation of people and goods. The Great Lakes are considered another important body of water. They are Lakes Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. You can remember the names of the Great Lakes if you remember the word Holmes.
The first letter of each Great Lake, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior, spell Holmes.
The Great Lakes provide transportation and recreation for people in the United States and Canada. The Appalachian mountain chain runs almost parallel to the east coast of the United States. These mountains begin in Quebec, Canada, and extend south into northern Alabama. The Appalachians are not as tall and rugged as the Rockies to the west. You can even walk along the crests of these mountains on a 2,100-mile trail from Maine to Georgia.
We're taking a look at a physical map of the United States. Cartographers are the people who make maps. When laying out a physical map, cartographers use different colors to visually represent the physical features that are being mapped. Blue is the most common color used to show rivers, lakes, oceans, and other bodies of water. Elevation is generally shown with different shades of green or brown, progressing from light to dark as elevation changes. A map's color scheme, of course, does not necessarily match the way the ground looks in real life. A desert near sea level, for example, might be shown with dark green because it is low in elevation, but if you visited the desert in person, you would see tan sand, not dark green grass. Because color can be used differently in various maps, it's always important to look at the map key to make sure that you understand the information you are reading. Also called a legend, a key is a box or a list found in the corner or on the side of a map. It explains the map symbols. Can you find the key in this map? Now let's take a look at marking political boundaries. Political maps are another common type of map. Political maps identify political boundaries between places. So taking a look at this map as an example, you can see that each country is being shown in a different color, as well as the strong borders found within those political regions. A political map identifies political boundaries between places. A political boundary is the dividing line that separates neighboring areas controlled by different governments or groups. There are political boundaries between countries, between states and provinces, and between other territorial areas such as counties and cities. In addition to showing boundary lines or borders, political maps often identify capital cities and other major cities. Political boundaries sometimes correspond to natural geographic boundaries like mountains or rivers. Political boundaries sometimes correspond to natural geographic boundaries like mountains or rivers. So taking a look at this map, you'll be able to notice that the major cities are being identified by a star. The water is all shown in blue, as well as being labeled the name of the ocean. And if you take a look, especially using the bottom portion, you're going to see Lake Victoria, which is here. Lake Victoria is the beginning point for the Nile River, and you can see it going north. and exiting in the Mediterranean Sea. Political maps may use color to show different countries or the internal divisions within a specific area. Boundary lines are usually drawn in black. Solid black lines typically represent international borders between nations. Thinner black lines or lines of dashes are often used to represent borders between states, territories, or smaller districts. Sometimes political maps show major roadways or waterways using red, blue, or other colored lines. The map key on a political map lets the readers know what symbols represent specific types of borders and other key information. Now let's take a look at a map that focuses on something a little different. These are called special purpose maps. Have you ever seen a map that shows long-term weather conditions or climate in a particular location? How about a map that identifies the natural resources in an area? These type of maps are called special purpose maps or thematic maps because they show information related to a certain theme or subject. We're going to take a look at symbols, keys, and special purpose maps, a short video clip.
Globes show land, water, and distances. They can also show many other things. Symbols are special marks on maps and globes that stand for real things. These symbols can represent places, landmarks, industries, or various other things. Colors and shadings also have meaning, standing for such features as weather conditions, or landforms, which, like this map, may designate highlands or lowlands. Here are some typical symbols for a state map in the United States. A key is used to explain the meaning of symbols on a map. For example, here's a town map with several highways, structures, and other physical features. And here is a map key to explain the symbols. By checking the key, we see that this symbol represents the town hall, and this symbol stands for a factory, and this symbol for a river. What does this symbol represent?
This symbol stands for a park, and as we can see, there are 2 parks on this map. On maps, distance scale is also a type of key. For various kinds of maps, there are different keys to explain the different symbols. Symbols and keys are easy to use and make it possible for us to get more information from maps and globes. There are many special purpose maps. And since maps tell the story of the world around us, there are many different kinds of maps that tell many stories. Maps, like this population map, allow us to see information quickly. Because maps are visual, they convey general information faster and better than pages of words or complex tables. Many special maps are called thematic maps because they use geography to provide information on a theme or subject that people need to know.
Now let's take a look at regions. What is a region and how are regions defined? Do you know that the U.S., Southwest, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East, and the Appalachian Highlands all have in common? They're all regions. A region is a group of nearby places that all share certain characteristics. These shared characteristics could be physical geography features such as a similar climate, vegetation, or landforms. Or the characteristics could be human and cultural features such as major industries, ethnic populations, languages spoken, or religions that are practiced. So how do we place areas into regions? It would be overwhelming to try to study the whole world at once. So looking at separate regions helps geographers identify patterns and compare information both inside particular regions and from one another. Physical regions are defined by having similar landforms or other physical features. Cultural regions are defined by human characteristics rather than physical characteristics. So let's take a look at dividing the U.S. into regions.